The Great Steppe, millenniums of events, hundreds of nomadic tribes and people. They lived, worked, made discoveries, conquered large tracts of lands, and left us some mysteries. To learn more about it, watch the project called Enigma of the Great Steppe. In spring 749, a young nobleman arrived in the court of Abu Muslim, the Arab governor of Khorasan. The name of this nobleman was Ziyad ibn Salih. Why did he come to the ancient city Merv, the capital of the eastern part of the Muslim world? Maybe it was business, career, or romantic ideas that led him to this city. No, it was revenge. Ziyad was the son of the ruler of the Shash city. It is the territory of modern Tashkent. The Chinese emperor treacherously captured the city, and the commander of the Chinese army, Gao Xianzhi, executed the governor of Khorasan, and his son Ziyad barely survived. The surviving boy did not ask for security, but he demanded to punish the Chinese general. Soon the young nobleman had a chance to get even with his enemy, but he could not imagine what kind of forces would confront each other, and what would be the aftermath of his plan of revenge in the Great Steppe. In 750, Gao Xianzhi arrived in Xi on the pretext to settle an agreement. He captured and imprisoned the ruler of the city. The forces of Gao Xianzhi plundered the palace and the city itself. They took a lot of great musical instruments and gold. 5 or 6 camels were loaded with these precious items. A huge number of people were enslaved. They also took lots of horses. Eighth century. What and who could threaten the people of the ancient empire that once had the power over the territory from the Pacific Ocean to the Bosphorus? In the first half of the 8th century AD, the Turkic tribes lost their dominant position in Eurasia because of the constant internal conflicts and wars with neighbors. More than 100 years had passed since the Great Turkic Khaganate was divided into the eastern and western parts. The eastern part was captured by the forces of the Chinese Empire. The Turgesh tribe took over the western Turkic Khaganate, and Turkesh, the ruler, declared himself as an independent Khagan. If the Turkesh Khaganate existed today, it would be located on the territory of southeast of Kazakhstan, part of the Xinjiang region of China, almost all territory of Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan, including the Tashkent city. In 738, Suluk Khagan, nicknamed the Budding Head, was assassinated in Suyab city, capital of the Turkish Khaganate. He got himself this nickname with his personal character. Being squeezed between the enemies, Suluk successfully fought against the Tang dynasty, against the Arabs who got very close, and against rivals who fought for the right to dominate in the Turkic world, the Western Turkic Khaganate. As soon as the news of the death of Suluk, the Budding Head, reached his eternal enemies, the great two powers launched their armies against the Turkic lands.
После гибели Сулук Кагана, это основатель.
Suluk Khagan was the founder, the collector, and one of the most important figures of the Turkish Khaganate.
Крупный государственный деятель киргизского каганата.
The Turkish Khaganate had existed since the beginning of the 8th century and imploded in 766 AD.
766 года нашей эры. После гибели как раз начался.
After the death of Suluk Khagan, the Tang Empire began the expansion to the lands of the Turkish Khaganate.
Земли тюргешев.
This Khaganate was one of the most powerful states of that time. In 840, the Tang Empire seized the capital, the Turkish Khaganate, Suyab city, which was located on the territory of the modern Kyrgyzstan.
Остатки этого города находятся на территории современного Кыргызстана. Помогал
Gao Xianzhi, the commander of the Tang forces, played a big role in this siege. Who led the aggressive campaign? Who out of the participants of those events is considered a national hero in South Korea till this day? Who did the Tang Emperor trust on to arrange an important mission as the seizure of the profitable routes of the Silk Road? The general Gao Xiangji, the hereditary military, was born in the kingdom of Goguryeo, one of the three Korean states of the early Middle Ages. He was a prominent strategist of his time. The Tang forces captured the capital of the Turkish Khaganate under his command and then declared one of the Chinese rulers as the ruler over these lands. However, this ruler was soon killed by the rebels.
Этой китайской экспансии не только территории современного Казахстана, Тургеневского Каганата. Цель была завоевание.
The purpose of this Chinese expansion was not only the conquest of the territory of the modern Kazakhstan, the Turgesh Khaganate, but the conquest of Sogdiana civilization. Sogdiana was the strongest state in Central Asia. In 48, the Chinese Empire formed the most powerful army. There were a lot of Korean immigrants among the soldiers. Some of these immigrants were the generals. We do not know all the names of these generals, but according to many sources, the state was called the Kingdom of Joseon. It is the medieval name of the entire Korean peninsula. There were many units of the army. Most of the generals of these units were of Korean origin. So was Gao Xiangji. That war was unavoidable, inevitable. Because at that time there were internal conflicts in the Turgesh Khaganate. And it fell into two parts, Sari Turgesh and Kara Turgesh. This led to the decline of the Khaganate. In the east, the Chinese army threatened to enslave or even to destruct the Turkic world. But what was happening in the west at that moment? Who was the only force able to repel China? In the middle of the 8th century, the Arabs settled down in the capital of Khorasan, Merv. The city of Merv was subsequently turned to the foothill for the forays into the Turkic and Sogdian cities first, and then for the aggressive campaigns. In the first half of the 8th century, Shash city, which is modern Tashkent, Samarkand, Taraz, Bukhara, and other cities, were under the power of the governor of Khorasan, Abu Muslim. Thus, the soldiers of the caliphate invaded the Turkish lands. Of course, the intervention of these powers in the political situation and the economic life of the huge Eurasian territory was the result of the fact that China had its own interest and purposes. China has always sought to seize the territory of Semiriche, the southeastern part of modern Kazakhstan, to extend its power over the territory of Central Asia. This was from one side. From the other side, starting from the 7th century, the Arabs began their conquest after Muhammad's death. They started their expansion in all directions of the Eurasian territory. As you know, the Arabs seized North Africa, Spain, where they founded their own state and began the conquest of Central Asia. However, the domination of the Arabs in Central Asia was precarious. Local Turkic, Sogdian population by all means was trying to overthrow the power of the caliphate. Therefore, when the rebellion broke out in the center of the Muslim world, it led to the change of power, and Central Asian colonies refused to accept the new government of the Abbasids, whose ruler declared himself caliph. In the 3rd year of the reign of Abu al-Abbas, there was rebellion in Bukhara, which was led by Sharikh ibn Shaykh al-Makri. 30,000 Arabs from the defeated forces and other people blamed Abu Muslim in the spilling of innocent blood and exorbitant murders. With the generals Ziyad ibn Salih and Abu Dawood Khalid ibn Ibrahim al-Zukhli, Abu Muslim sent his forces against these rebels. He also took part in this battle and killed Sharikh ibn Shaykh, conquered Bukhara and Sogd cities again. Ziyad ibn Salih. He was the very young nobleman who had lost everything just 2 years earlier and had to ask for help from the governor of Khorasan. Over those 2 years, demonstrating the best talent of the commander, he had turned himself into one of the closest people of the powerful governor, Abu Muslim.
Зияд ибн Салих как раз он руководитель
Ziyad ibn Salih was the general of the entire Arab army. His father was executed in the Shash city.
был казнен в городе Шаше.
And he, Ziyad ibn Salih, continued the work of his father, promoting of jihad, the Arab conquest of the lands of other nations and states. It is the spread of the Muslim religion.
Вообще здесь и многие пишут, здесь, говорят, еще победила идеология.
In general, as many other researchers mention, ideology won there. There were many carts with children and wives in the Arab army because it was a strong ideology. In fact, they were invading under the name of the Prophet, and they did not want to retreat.
Сильная идеология. Идеология – это фактически шла, как говорится, под знаменем пророка они шли. Они не хотели отступать дальше.
How long could these two powers avoid the conflicts between each other? What did the Turkic people do? Which empire was blown to pieces on both sides? So the Turkish Khaganate was occupied. The capital was seized by the enemy. The power institute of Khagans was undermined. Internal strives intensified. In times of turmoil and conflicts, there was no unity not only among the nomadic tribes, but also among the urban population. Seeing the massacre in other cities, the ruler of Fergana city that had conflicts with Tashkent, chosen the lesser of two evils as he believed. He asked for the help from the Chinese Empire. Fergana hoped that the Tang forces would protect them from the invasion of the Arab armies.
Когда обращаются за помощью, чтобы, значит, с этой арены соперничества убрать своего соперника, то есть вот именно правителя Ша.
The ruler of Fergana asked for help with the aim to remove his enemy, that is, the ruler of the Shash city. And his plan was to seize the territory of Shash.
Вот именно это как раз-таки обращение его за помощью, значит, к правителю Сина, скажем, да, ну, Китая. Вот, и явилась...
But here he made a huge mistake. Really, it was the mistake because this recourse to the governor of China was the reason of the events that happened much later.
События, которые уже явились более...
This event is the Battle of Talas. So if to say in modern language, events that led to the Battle of Talas started at the regional level.
Уровни, скажем сейчас, сегодняшним языком.
The son of the executed ruler of Shash city finally got an opportunity to take revenge for his father. According to the well-known researcher of the Arabic world, Oleg Bolshakov, immediately after the suppression of the rebellion in Bukhara, Abu Muslim sent his commander to seize Transoxiana. The commander was successful in this task. Realizing the danger of losing the conquered territories, the Chinese army started to besiege the Taraz city. Ziyad ibn Salih immediately reached to help the governor of the fortress. Meanwhile, the son of the ruler of Shi, after getting the support from the neighbor rulers and the Arabs, fought against the Chinese army. Gao Xianzhi went with 60,000 people, almost all of them were of the local population. However, he had some Chinese officers and soldiers. His troops walked more than 700 miles, and they were exhausted during this campaign. What place did the army of the Arab Caliphate and the army of the Chinese Empire meet for the first and last time? Which town's name did remain in the world history as the place of battle between the two most powerful nations of that time? Whom did the locals support? The locals, the owners of that territory, where this battle took place. The opposition of these two powerful states had resulted in the event which was called the Battle of Talas. Why the Battle of Talas? Because this battle was on the banks of the Talas River. It is near the city called Atlach. Some call this battle as the Battle of Atlach. The city is situated near Taraz. Caught in the crossfire, the Turgesh people preferred to support the Arabs. The Chinese side was supported by the other major Turkic unification, the Karaluks, who previously were actively involved in the destruction of the East Turkic Khaganate, but in the end they became vassals of the Tang dynasty. They integrated into the troops of Gao Xiangji and arrived to the Talas River. The numeric quantities of the combatants involved in the Battle of Talas are not known with certainty. According to Ibn al-Asir, the Chinese side had the army of 50,000, but other sources indicate 100,000 people. We do not know the exact quantity of the soldiers of the Arabic army, but they sent part of the garrison of the Samarkand city. Militia men and a huge number of faith fighters arrived. The Arab forces joined in combat with the Tang Chinese forces on the banks of the Talas River. Atlach is located 20 kilometers far from Taraz. There is a mound called Juan Tobe, and it is the remains of the Atlach city. The details how the Battle of Atlach was fought are not known. We only know that one side won the battle on the 5th day. There were two types of cavalry in the army of Ziyad ibn Salih. One was light, it was the Turgesh cavalry, and the other was heavy, it was the Yemen cavalry. They were supposed to start the battle first and distract Karaluk cavalry with this action. Chinese and Arab soldiers fought mostly on foot. Meanwhile, exactly the Karaluks played a crucial role in the Battle of Atlach. At a certain point, they decided to stab their allies in the back. Tang chroniclers call this act as act of betrayal and desertion. For the Turgesh people, the Karaluks' treason had become a symbol of unity of the ancient nomads in front of the single enemy. Commander of the Tang forces, Gao Xiangji, recognized the defeat was imminent and managed to escape with some of his Tang regulars with the help of Li Siye. Hearing this, the vice general of the Tang army, Duan Suishi, said the following phrase, which was included in the chronicles. The flight away from the enemy is not a sign of the courage. Salvation by the giving up the army is not a sign of good deed. You have managed to escape, but don't you feel guilty and ashamed for what you have done? In the end, Gao Xiangji, with a small amount of soldiers, reached the lands that were under control of China. It was the only route, and it led to the mountains of Bishe, where the remnants of the Chinese army rushed in search of asylum. A lot of people of Pahana, Fergana were in front of the Chinese army. Men and saddled animals blocked the road. Li Siye and his people started galloping and, having large spears, fought their way through the crowd. Soldiers and horses were mortally wounded. This is how they won Gao Xiangji. Why, despite the victory of the Arabs over the Chinese Empire, the Turkic cities did not join the caliphate? What was the reason of the Muslim rulers' inability to conquer Central Asia? What made the Tang dynasty to endure a humiliating defeat and to give up the aim of capturing the Western lands? Everything was being turned to the fact that the Turkic tribes should have finally lost their dominance in Central Asia. But the events that happened immediately after the Battle of Talas can be explained only as the power of the Arawaks, ancestral spirits. Indeed, if to look through the veil of the history of those days, it seems that ancestral spirits intervened the sequence of events. They did not allow the alien invaders to walk over their graves. After the defeat near the Atlach city, a major rebellion broke out in China that forced the Tang Chinese to forget their plans of conquest of Central Asia. At the same time, Abbasids, who seized the throne of the caliphate, led the Arab state into the chaos of eternal conflicts. They also had to leave the territory of the Turkic lands. The Karaluks, who skillfully took advantage of the situation, started playing the leading role in the region. The Tang Chinese left the territory of the Turkic lands and no longer invaded our territory, although there were some small and significant forays. But the Arabs were gradually walking away from our territory because at that time the Turkic power was stronger than the power of the Arabs.
была на тот момент как бы больше. И поэтому, конечно, арабы, с одной стороны,
The Arabs brought this culture and religion.
являли собой вот эту культуру, там, религию и так далее, да, они свое дело сделали, но постепенно...
They did their job, but they gradually walked away.
Потому что все-таки вот эта тюркская мощь...
Because here the Turkic power was stronger.
И они не были...
And the Arabs were not the invaders of our territory. It is very important.
Вы сейчас вот только посмотрите...
Now look, let's consider the land which originally belonged to those people. Then they are invaders.
Которая была исконно вот того народа, они являются насельниками.
But the Arabs who came gradually left our territory.
Они постепенно ушли.
This is history. They could not stay here for many years and centuries.
Не могли закрепиться на долгие годы, века.
How did the Turks manage to retain their independence, being the hostages of the situation, and at the same time to move to the next level of their development? What did our ancestors lose and gain in that battle? The decline of the Turkic writing started exactly with the Arab-Chinese confrontation. The Arabic script became the dominant one on the territory of the Turkic lands, and the Turks began to write in Arabic on Chinese paper for the first time. The Muslims imprisoned the Chinese, and the knowledgeable Chinese prisoners were ordered to produce paper in Samarkand, to produce various weapons and tools which were not produced in other cities of Khorasan, except Samarkand.
Ну, там такой есть эпизод, что вот бумага самаркандская, вроде, кстати, пишут.
According to some sources, Samarkand became one of the paper-making centers.
На востоке. Ну, а
Paper was very popular and famous in the East.
было совершенно справедливо, что
It is known that the Chinese helped to establish the production of paper.
в Самарканде китайцев, 20 тысяч китайцев было захвачено в плен.
20,000 Chinese people were captured after the Battle of Talas. According to the archaeological data, they were settled near Taraz, near the town of Jikil.
Часть китайцев была переселена.
Part of the Chinese were sold into slavery.
Продана или уведена в Среднюю Азию.
It is known that some part of the prisoners were ordered to produce paper.
Армии, занимались бумагоделанием.
They turned a new interesting page of the Samarkand economy. They learned paper manufacturing.
Самарканда научили делать бумагу.
The victory of the Arabs also had a great impact on the spread of Islamic culture, especially among the urban population. The written sources confirm the increase of the number of cities at that time. After joining the Arab culture, the Turkic population began to play a very important role in the Muslim world. They started using the Arab names. Such great scholars as Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and Al-Khwarazmi, and many others became known to the world.
Я вот посмотрел некоторые, вот например, наши имена.
I made a research and found out that 90% of our names are of the Arabic and Persian origin.
И персидского значения имеет. Сегодня
Only 10% of the names are Turkic ones.
казахского остальные.
Many names have Arabic origin.
Основа.
It turns out that we, the descendants of the combatants of that battle, still hear the echoes of the Battle of Talas. It is difficult to imagine which names the modern Kazakhs would give to their children. The Chinese Empire had won the Battle of Atlach. What would be our religion? What would we appear as a nation if the Karluks had not stabbed their allies in the back? The union of the Turkic people in that battle had a great significance in further development of the entire Central Asian region.
Арабы смогли вот вместе с завоеванным народом.
The Arabs, together with the conquered population, managed to create this amazing culture, where Islam and the cultural standards predominated. There were other different things of economic significance that people could get after conversion to Islam. For example, tax exemption. Islam started to spread with the help of the sword and speech of the preachers, with the help of the cultural standards. It is a complicated process, but gradually Islam has established itself in Kazakhstan and Central Asia.
эталонами. То есть это сложный процесс. Но постепенно вот, кстати, ислам утвердился в Казахстане, в Средней Азии.
As time passed, the story of this battle has turned to the legend. People still argue about how it started, how many combatants from both sides were involved in that battle. They argue about who or what influenced the outcome of the armed conflict. Perhaps the most important consequence of the battle between two worlds on the banks of the Talas River was the fact that the Chinese Empire never made an attempt to seize the Turkic lands after this battle. The Turkic people did not only defend their independence, but also had the opportunity to join the most progressive civilization of that time.